We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. Tom is back, so thank you to Lee Overstreet
you
for
two
pinch hitting
people
last
need to
week.
get to the dang point. Do you understand? When you start the podcast, all right, I gotta you two gabbing until you start the no.
Oh, the recording. You're just talking the recording.
The
talking
recording.
About it
You guys
before
have got to start like 1, 2, 3, pop. Start the recording, and then make sure everything's working, and then start the podcast.
It was
None of this.
so
I have to
difficult.
listen to 5 minutes of you two me talking about Lee's knee or whatever the heck it was you guys were. I don't remember.
I don't think that had any. I don't recall anything about that. But all right. Well, there you go. I guess for the next time in 6 months or whenever Lee is back on.
So last week I was out, and I'm sorry about that, guys. So my wife decided we were going to go mountain biking as a family, which is fine. I like mountain biking, and we have a world-class mountain bike park here called Alafaya, which if you're into mountain biking, you should know that name. But if you're not, if you don't know that name and you are into mountain biking, you should look it up because apparently it's real good. Like, I don't know anything about mountain bike. I know a little bit about road cycling, but not a lot about mountain biking. But the thing about this place is that they have a mountain, God dang it! I thought I turned that off. They
Tom's
have
phone got a text in case you heard the Metal Gear Solid alert.
If somebody's getting some PTSD from the Metal Gear Solid thing. No, so we is this the microphone? Yeah, okay.
I think
so they have a bicycle shop / rental place right there for like $70 a bike. You can rent a bike for all day that you don't have to bring back and worry about maintaining. It's a phenomenal deal, and it's really good. It's a really good thing, but it's very tiring. I mean, if you're not into I'm a cyclist, but I'm not that kind of cyclist, so it's it's a different sort of thing that you're doing. But I still did 18 miles when I was out there because I was taking everybody out and bringing them all back. Until everybody else was exhausted, I was like, well, I guess it's time to go home now. So everybody else looked like they got ran over by a truck. And I felt pretty good. My wife, who cycles to work twice a week, also was feeling okay. But the 3 kids were a wreck. But that didn't mean that I was going to be in no condition to be podcasting that week. So that's an unfortunate side effect of that. And the kids were all home and we're trying to do something fun together.
Hey, I mean, we didn't miss an episode over the holiday break time, so it's more than fair that you take a week off. So that was all right. It was nice to catch up with Lee anyway, so yeah. It was all good. I know.
All right, so what did you watch while I was gone?
Oh, yeah. So this week I did watch Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery.
So is that that's the second movie, right?
It's the second movie.
Yeah. And it went to theaters, right?
For 1 week it did, because this was...
I'm very confused by this whole thing.
Yeah, this was purchased by Netflix just outright. It belongs to Netflix now. So... originally, I think they were just going to release it on Netflix. Then, for whatever reason, they decided, we want to have it in theaters for 1 week only, where it actually did quite well. And it was kind of a silly decision that they didn't keep it in theaters longer, because this doesn't look like a direct-to-video movie or anything like that. Written and directed by Rian Johnson, had a full movie's budget. This was shot during COVID lockdown, though. So they addressed that as part of it. Like, they shot it and they set it during COVID lockdown. So that is part of what's going on. It's part of why it takes place, where it takes place. That's all part of it. So, I mean, if you enjoyed the first Knives Out, this is not exactly the same thing. This does give Benoit Blanc, Daniel Craig's character, more screen time, more lines, more to do. And I'm not always a fan of that. Like, when you have the character who isn't really the main character, but they're the one that you remember, much like, Johnny Depp's Jack Sparrow in the first Pirates of the Caribbean, and then in the sequel you sort of make the movie about them as opposed to them just being the force. Like he was literally kind of hiding in the shadows in Knives Out for much of it.
Right.
And then, gives his big speech, to the exposition of how everything happened much earlier in the movie in Knives Out than you might expect in a mystery. But, this one does the classic thing of now we're focusing much more on Benoit Blanc himself. So I'm not always a huge fan of that choice. It's understandable. Daniel Craig is still a lot of fun in this, although his accent, I don't know what is going on, why he has to do that accent, because it don't work all the time, but he's having a ball with it, so that's all right. And then I have to say, this movie is saved by Edward Norton. If it were anybody besides Edward Norton in the role that he's playing, I don't think it would work anywhere close to as well as it works. He pulls off the line delivery that is like crucial to this entire movie. Like, if he doesn't pull off those line deliveries and you actually notice what he's doing, the whole movie would fall apart. So credit to an actor for having that much responsibility and making it look very effortless. So I mean, this is a packed movie full of stars, but Edward Norton really stands out in it, in my opinion. He's really the linchpin of making this whole movie work. So
how long is it?
Right around 2 hours. It's not crazy long. So yeah, I quite enjoyed it. Not completely over the moon about it. I think I liked Knives Out a little bit more than this one for just my own personal taste, just what the mystery was and which characters were focused on. I enjoyed Knives Out. I thought that was a little bit more creative. I thought some of the like very eccentric sets, which crosses over into this one as well, because they were certainly very eccentric sets in Knives Out, I thought played a little bit more of a fun role in the first movie than it did in this second movie. But yeah, I give it a thumbs up for sure. It's an enjoyable time. If you hated Knives Out, then I don't think you're going to like this. So that it doesn't stray too far from what it is sequeling. But I just... on the title, I'm not like, it's glass onion colon a Knives Out mystery, because they wanted to make sure Knives Out was still in there, so you knew it was a sequel to that movie. So I'm like, I don't know if that was the best way to do that, but that's just the title. That is easy to ignore. So there you go. How about Tom?
All right, so I think on the last podcast, which was closer to Christmas, I said that there was another movie I watched. I couldn't remember what it was. It was A Bad Mom's Christmas.
Okay.
It's got like...
I have a really vague memory of the
crazy
trailer
number
for that.
of people in there.
Yeah.
It's got Susan Sarandon
Oh,
is like probably the biggest name that's in there, and she has not a huge role, but not a small one either.
Okay.
We got the actress that plays Agatha Harkness, whose name I'm...
Catherine Hahn. She's in Glass Onion as well.
Yes, and then it's got just tons and tons of people in this thing.
Okay.
And including Kristen Bell.
Okay.
And it's, well, I'll put it this way. We watched it with my wife and my 13-year-old son, and we got like a quarter of the way into the movie, and my wife looked at me and goes, "Is this really appropriate for him?" I'm like, well, it's too late now.
Okay. He's seen and heard what he has seen and heard.
Because we don't mind that much about language, but there was a bit of spicy talk.
Okay.
I don't remember there being... I think there was at least one strip club scene, I feel like. But, I think it's rated PG-13 or something.
Okay.
It might be R. I don't really remember.
Yes, I mean, we have to remember it's very difficult for a 13-year-old boy to find content like that anywhere else.
Yes,
the only way he might see it is in the movie Bad Moms, so,
Yeah, so it's okay. It's okay. It's supposed to be a funny Christmas movie. I didn't find it that funny.
Right.
The hardest part was that Kristen Bell was cast, I guess at this point, against type, even though it's for type based on her appearance, but as the ditzy blonde mom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
she usually doesn't play ditzy. That's unusual for her. She's
not dumb. She does like, and I think it's like she would say stuff like, "Well, why would she say that? That's just a stupid thing for her to say." But so I had a hard time with that part of it.
Okay.
But for the most part, I thought it was cute. If you were looking for something brainless and slightly funny to put on in the background, maybe it would be okay.
Okay.
Also, watch the Batman, the new one with Robert Pattinson. First of all, I liked it. Okay, I will say I liked it, and I won't say I liked it more than any other Batman, but it's definitely probably up there.
All right.
But all Batman movies, I think, have problems. And
I guess I wouldn't say any of them are literally perfect, if there is such a thing. But Dark Knight comes
there's
pretty
always
close.
issues with almost any movie, but Batman movies in particular, there's usually something going on that bothers me.
Okay.
First of all, there's no excuse for this movie being 3 hours long. First of all, if he had just walked faster, it could have been a 2.5 hour movie.
This is not a ninja Batman, that's for sure.
No.
This is definitely not a ninja style.
The first time
Batman.
he walked out of the shadows really slow, and you heard that, I was like, that was awesome. But the third time I was
why
like,
Batman wears
dude.
spurs, but he does apparently, according to the sound design. Batman wears spurs, but yeah.
I was like, pick it up, man. Pick it up. We got places to be here.
Dread. He's instilling dread.
I am vengeance. I am vengeance. Slow walking. Listen, Michael Myers. All right, come on, let's go. We got things going on here. I got dinner to cook. My wife did not make it. She didn't make me. We started that movie at like 8 o'clock. She did not make it. Not even close. She was like, I eventually had to send her. She was sitting there asleep with her mouth open. You know, I was like, lady, go to bed. Just go to bed. Like, you're not. Yeah. But the movie was overall, and of course, is it Zoe Kravitz? Is that right? Is that who's,
yeah, that's right.
I love her. So she was great. You know, I think they could have gone with either the Catwoman or the Riddler storyline. I don't think we really needed both in there. Like, anytime you try to do both, like two bad guys in one movie, you're like, it's too much. It's just, there's too much. So like, for a whole, like,
Catwoman's kind of playing the gray area in this one. She's not.
That's right.
Exactly
She's not really.
villain.
That's right. That's right. But she has her storyline takes up so much time that you at some point you're just like, oh right, the Riddler's in this. You know what I mean? Like, you forgot that there was another storyline going on for a while, and that's never good. That's never a good thing. But overall, I think, you know, it was like, the kids all enjoyed it. You know, we all liked it, but. Yeah, it's just ridiculously too long. But yeah, I thought Robert Pattinson, one of I think the best things I can say about Robert Pattinson and he's good actor. But he is the first Batman that you're like, yeah, I can see how people don't recognize him when he's not in the suit.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? You look at him and you look at him in the suit and his face, like, you could look at like any of the other Batmans and you're like, I see the bottom of your face. It's still the bottom of your face.
Yes, yeah.
But Robert Pattinson, it's like, I don't know. Is that Batman? I don't think that's
his
Batman.
Bruce Wayne doesn't come across as like large and bulky in any sort of way, and his Batman comes across as very large and bulky. So yeah. That works.
I mean, he totally killed it and maybe that's costume design, maybe that's whatever, but it totally worked as the first time I've ever seen a Batman and gone, yeah, that, like, he takes the suit off and no one knows who that dude is, like, at all, like, not even a chance. So yeah, I mean, there was a couple of scenes where I'm like, dude, you're not walking away from that. You're certainly not gonna.
Oh yeah. There was a problem with that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't care how much armor you're wearing.
Yeah.
Like, that's
because they did try to make at least the suit and the physical part of it quite based in reality, and then whoops-a-daisy, a couple of those scenes.
Yeah. Lastly, I'm going to mention, I haven't finished it yet, is on Netflix, 1899.
Yeah, I've heard very mixed things about 1899. Yeah. I know very little about it, but I've heard very mixed responses.
So my sense of this was that I was going into like a Lovecraftian horror sort of thing. Okay. And it is not. I don't know what it is, honestly. It's sort of a mystery, sort of a suspense thing. A little bit of tinge of horror in there. It's very slow paced. Like, but I'm not uninterested. So I'm like, I kind of wish they'd get this thing going. Like, the last episode I just watched, which I think it was 5 or 6, literally was just people walking around an empty ship looking for other people. Like, that was the whole thing, pretty much. I was like, oh my god, are we really just gonna keep walking in and out of empty rooms? Is that gonna be the whole episode? And for the most part it was but it was the thing that I'm gonna recommend for people on this podcast is the sound is nuts. Like, the sound on this show is insane. Now remember, I'm watching the Xbox Series X, which means who knows what the sound's actually doing, what sound I'm getting out of it. Could be anything. But the overheads are like popping in this thing. There's tons of like weird sounds. There's lots of stuff that's mixed in behind you that moves around as the camera switches angles and stuff like that. Like, if you're looking for something to watch that's like gonna show off, at least for you, the stuff, the immersive stuff audio your speakers can do and stuff, and surround sound. Yeah, this is it.
And I have heard this is probably best watched in pretty close to pitch black room if you can. That it's not a particularly bright show to watch with the lights on. Okay.
No. But I think it's interesting. The acting is all quite good. I think. It's there's a whole bunch of the premise is there's a whole bunch of people on the ship and they're all going to America from Europe, right? Back in 1899, and because they're all going over there, they're all from different countries and speaking different languages. So it's just like, none of them some of them can't talk to each other. Some of them don't speak. And it's they may take a little liberties here and there, but for the most part, you're like, that's kind of interesting to see how all these people are trying to interact with each other and all the subtitles. It's like subtitles everywhere. But I like it. I don't know that it's great yet. It's gonna have to see how it ends. It is slow pace. It does need to pick a that's apparently
maybe that's what the 1.25 and 1.5 speed options are for now.
But I think that would make all the sound effects very strange.
Yes, it would.
Because I mean, and there's a lot of like low bass where you're and it just like all of a sudden, like the room shakes, and I'm sitting here going, "What is happening in my room?" And like things are vibrating. I'm like, okay, I got to go find out what that is. Cool. But very good.
Well, there we go. That's what we watched. It's been a couple of weeks for Tom, so that's why it's a little bit longer.
I probably watched other things. I just can't remember what they are.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh. I really didn't watch much more than that.
I'm still working my way through Andor.
Oh, you haven't finished it yet? I thought you had finished it.
No, I haven't finished it yet. Okay. I just got to the end of an episode where I'm like, should be the end, because this is like, they finished the thing they were trying to do, but apparently
there is a denouement.
Two or three more episodes you'll have to, anyways. All right, let's talk about what this podcast does. We are AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask us by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Go to our website, avrant.com, which is switching servers, so could be down at any time for any length of time. Who knows? But we're switching servers.
Gotcha.
Hopefully, it might be already done. I don't know. We'll find out. AVRant.com to find our episodes, our show notes, our Flickr albums that you can follow along with the pictures we're talking about, as well as a bunch of other stuff. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast, YouTube.com/AVRant, where you can see our recording sessions and watch me burp, apparently, because that's what I'm doing right now.
I had the question to AVRant still up there, so they're only hearing it. You didn't even had to let them know. But now
you
can
see our faces, and then there's also the Flickr images will be up there, so you won't have to go find them.
That's right.
Contact us directly, rob@avrant.com. I am Tom at avrant.com. I don't know if you're using any other social media these days. I know I'm not. I'm still available on Twitter. That's still the easiest place to get me. I'm still on Hive. I'm at First Reflect at both of those places. There you go.
Yep.
All right. I want to thank our listeners of the week. We're going to start with our 139 patrons over at patreon.com. Patreon's a service. You sign up to become a supporting listener, supporting member of our listening audience. Every month, Patreon takes some money from you and give most of it to us. I think the minimum that you can do is $1.
I don't just think. I know that the minimum is $1. So, patreon.com/AVRant podcast. That's the place to go to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. Big thanks to our 139 patrons over there. And from the list, I'm guessing I didn't miss anybody on the PayPal list from last week. We do have one-time PayPal donations if you want to do that. Easiest way, come to our website, avrant.com. On the right-hand side, there is a picture of a cup of coffee. You click on that, it takes you to PayPal. So you can give a one-time donation that way if you want to.
All right. True and nice. If you can't support us financially, we understand. Find some way to support us, and we will mention you here. So Justin sent a bunch of Movie Anywhere codes. They weren't just Movie Anywhere. They were like
the ones that weren't those still said U.S. only, as far as I could tell. So
yeah. Anyway, so there's a whole bunch of them. He sent them over. I learned some stuff. I learned that sometimes if it's a Paramount movie, you got to go to a Paramount site.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Clicks you over. Anyways, they're all U.S., so I redeemed all of them that I could.
Nice.
There was one that expired in 2019.
Right.
So that one I didn't get.
We know that sometimes the expiration dates.
But it was so. in the Movie Anywheres thing, it'll say, like at first I didn't see this, but you put in a code that says this code doesn't work or this code is expired expired. But a lot of times it said this code doesn't work. In order to make it work, you have to go here. And it's like kind of in small print underneath. And that was like the Paramount ones and the Lionsgate ones and stuff like that.
Oh, Lionsgate for sure. Yeah, they're the worst.
It sends you over to their site and it says, oh, well, how do you want to redeem this? And it gives you like options. So you click one, the one that you have, and it sends you back to Movie Anywhere.
Perfect.
Like, okay, whatever.
Ideal user experience.
Yes, very user-friendly.
Right.
Yeah. We also got some notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going from Manny, who's a member of our 2-Hour Plus Club, from Vasanth.
I believe so,
Vasanth. Anyways, Vasanth says he thanks us, or they thank us for keeping some money in their pocket. He was about to go down the rabbit hole of audiophile DACs, but we stopped him. Plus, we're entertaining. So you're welcome, Vasanth. Paul says we've kept him company through some bouts of insomnia the past couple of months. Boy, if you can't fall asleep to this, what can you fall asleep to? So he's glad we've kept it going, and Happy New Year to us. Kevin got into our podcast over the holidays, and he's been binging episodes ever since. Jay hopes Santa was good to us. He got a pair of Columbia gloves with their heat-reflective lining. He thought it was just marketing when he first heard about Columbia's lining, but he got their lightweight jacket and it kept him warm in minus 30-degree wind chill. So, not an AV gadget, but, you know, might be something.
Could be useful. He says it's the real deal.
Infinite Gary says it was good to see pitch hitter Lee again. I still don't know who he's talking about. Justin, fan since the Dina days. Glad we kept it going. He's on his 4th dedicated theater now, and each has been better than the last, thanks in part to our advice.
Nice.
Gurinder says it was nice to see Lee in the new year. Our episode was a nice bit of stress relief while he was at work. And Andrew. So let's go through those names again. Yeah. Manny, Vasanth, Paul, Kevin J, Infinite Gary, Justin, Gurinder, and Andrew. Thank you for thanking us.
Yes, indeed. I'll say the names one more time so it came from me. Manny, Vasanth, Paul, Kevin J, Infinite Gary, Justin, Gurinder, and Andrew. Thank you all so much for sending us in those notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going. They are certainly appreciated, the notes of encouragement. So a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions. And yes, Happy New Year to all. And yeah, Santa was pretty good to me. I was happy. It was all good.
I got almost nothing. Spent all the money on the kids. All right, in the news, CES, of course, is wrapping up, I guess, or just wrapped up.
Yep.
Dirac made their new spatial room correction official and gave it a final name. That's Dirac Live Active Room Treatment, or ART for short. I just want to say I hate it.
Oh, the name? Like, not the thing, because we haven't tried the thing.
I hate the marketing behind this thing. It's just like, we're making room sound absorbers obsolete. I'm like, oh, God. Oh, God. This is all I need.
They are really saying this is only for bass, which we'll get into as far as
I know, but that's not what the marketing's saying. The marketing is saying, you don't need to do anything to your room but this.
Actually, yeah, there was a bit of that in when they were talking about it in the hotel room. They're like, it's an untreated room. There's no acoustic treatments in here at all. All you're hearing is Dirac Live Active Room Treatment, Dirac Live Art. Yeah. So, yeah, you're right.
So as we detailed in the previous episode, this feature utilizes all speakers in the immersive audio system to essentially perform as active rather than passive room treatments. This home version is for bass only, whereas the version for cars extends up to higher frequencies, since the speaker and seating positions are fixed and known in a car. The additional big news is that it will be exclusive to StormAudio products when it launches this spring. Other brands will start to get it in late 2023 or early 2024. Any StormAudio processors purchased after January 1st, 2023 will be ready for the upgrade right away. If you already bought a StormAudio processor prior to 2023, you can pay $299 to add Dirac Live Art when it becomes available. I hate it. I'm sorry. I hate it. I do. And I don't hate it because I think it doesn't work or that I don't think it has value. Sure. I hate it because of the marketing. I hate it because we are after years and years of trying to convince people to get to treat their rooms, after years of looking at pictures online of people's finished, in air quotes, finished home theaters with literally nothing on the walls and hard floors and hard ceilings and reflective everything. And them thinking they're done. Now I get to have this discussion again with them and try to educate them more. You know what? I don't blame Dirac for it.
Nope, not at
I
all.
don't think I think that they're doing what they have to do to make money, and I think there's some value to it. I hate it, and I want it to not exist.
Oh
honestly.
no! Well, I can't say
I want them to do it right or just not do it. And the thing is, they can't do it right. They can't because, like you said with the cars,
not to high frequencies. No,
you don't know where the speakers are. You don't know anything, and it's and then even if you did, you don't know the capabilities of the speakers and everything. I mean, there's just I hate it.
So my biggest issue with it as it stands now, I'm not all the way to Tom's I hate it and don't want it to exist. I'm quite happy for it to exist. But the thing that is definitely cloying to me is this discussion that you must have now full range speakers in all positions, which is a ridiculous requirement. And as far as I can tell, like when Matthew Pose went through it very detailed, doesn't seem like it's true. Now, it does seem like to gain the most benefit out of this, you probably would want more than 2 subwoofers. That this system to really work could genuinely take greater advantage of 4 or possibly even more, but 4 subwoofers placed in your room with this system could do substantially more than just placing the 4 subwoofers as they are and not utilizing all of the subwoofers to play in concert with the speakers, particularly in that crossover region, to do this, what is essentially noise canceling. I mean, it's a very similar idea in principle to noise cancellation, which is why they can't do it at the higher frequencies where it's uncertain where people are going to be sitting in the room and uncertain where the speakers are going to be positioned and aimed and all that type of stuff. But in the lower frequencies where we're dealing with standing waves and we're below the room transition frequency, in fact, in the video that Audio Nirvana did with a rep from Dirac and with a rep from StormAudio, they were saying their initial version of this is going to be, I think they said 150 hertz and lower only.
Oh, well. Yeah. Who needs room treatments then?
Right.
You know,
yeah.
Who needs them?
Yeah.
You don't need them.
For your reflections. Yeah. Your vocal reflections and things like that.
Who could possibly find any use for room treatments if you have Dirac art?
And I mean, I think a little bit of that thinking is, they're not doing 250 hertz, which is kind of typical as the room transition frequency for a lot of rooms, because I think they're envisioning that this is going in larger rooms with taller ceilings where the transition frequency might be below 250 hertz, which is typical of like your 8 to 10 foot ceiling would be in that range.
StormAudio components aren't exactly
they ain't cheap.
Best Buy. Accessories for less type
those are very much contemporary of Trinov or Steinway Lingdorf. It's that type of price point. JBL Synthesis, they're up in that sort of price point. So they're the exclusive partner at the launch. Whether it's really going to come out in spring 2023, I have rather serious doubts because I don't think there's ever been a Dirac program that has launched on time when they've given a time. So, I mean, I have a few sort of, I won't say outright misgivings about it, but just I think there is going to be lots to explain, and I think more than what I'm certain of is there will be, within the home theater community, most of whom will be debating it without ever having experienced it.
That's the thing.
A ton of confusion. I foresee a lot of confusion about this. And particularly now, I mean, there was plenty of people out there who already wanted excuses to have tower speakers in every position and to be able to, more than actually wanting tower speakers in every position of their own system, they just wanted to be able to tell other people that their speakers weren't good enough. That's the real draw for a lot of the
whole
online
thing
people.
with Dirac right now anyways, right? Everybody's like, oh, you got to have Dirac. You got to have Dirac. Dirac is the best. You have to have Dirac. These people have never used it. They have no idea what they're talking about. And Andrew, who has used both Dirac and Odyssey, is like, man, give me Odyssey any day of the week.
But I mean, he used the Onkyo version, Tom. That must be the reason he didn't pay enough.
He didn't pay enough. I mean, you pay enough, then the cognitive dissonance will make it best.
There could be that. No word on this coming to Denon and Marantz AV receivers, the ones that were announced at the tail end of 2022 and said that Dirac Live would be coming to them. A little birdie has whispered in my ear that has also been delayed past March 2022 for Marantz, that might not, like, this is just basic Dirac Live coming to Denon and Marantz receivers, might not happen until 2024 at this point. So apparently they have run into some kind of thing. Like, the thing about Denon and Marantz is they are quite strict about anything that they put in their AV receivers does need to work. They don't want any crashing bugs or things like that. And it makes me wonder.
With a guest.
It makes me wonder. None of this I know for absolute certain. If it still comes out in March 2022 as they first announced, great. But yeah, I've heard some little rumblings behind the scenes that is not going quite as smoothly as they might have hoped. So, I mean, this could be another situation where Marantz runs into an issue because they marketed the heck out of their receivers as Dirac. It's right there on the box. It's got the logo, and you might not actually be getting that for a while now. So, I mean, hey, Emotiva survived for, 3.5 years on announcing that Dirac was coming? People waited for that. So, if another 9 months is all it takes, I guess that's not so bad. But, yeah. Overall, this this active room treatment thing that they're doing, yeah, I won't say full misgivings. I don't go all the way to Tom's. I don't want it to exist, but I am certain there's going to be a lot of misunderstanding and debate amongst people who really don't know what they're talking about.
Well, and that's the problem. The problem is, okay, let me rephrase. It's not that I don't want it to exist. I don't want it to be named and marketed the way it is.
Active room treatment.
It is not active room treatment. It's active bass treatment.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not across. Yeah, certainly not across the entire frequency range. It is not. Yeah. They are not claiming that it is when they talk about it. But yes, the name is misleading.
And no matter what hobby or what other interest you have in life, there's been a moment in every single one of those hobbies where some manufacturers come out with something, and everybody who knows anything about that hobby has gone, "Oh God, help us all." Because you know that it's just going to cause you so many problems. That was like Bose, right? Bose marketed those little cubes, and everybody who knew anything about sound went, "Oh God." And that's exactly what happened. We spent how many years? Still today, we've got people who are like, "I want my speakers to be as small as Bose cubes."
Yeah, right.
Bose can do it. Why can't somebody else do it? And the answer is Bose couldn't do it. They never could. They just told you they could, and you believe them. That's not the same thing. So that's what I hate about this so much, is simply because it's gonna be like I feel like somebody just tripled my workload.
Yes.
For no reason.
I also, in my heart of hearts, believe that if it works as well as they say that it should work, and as well as the theory behind it should allow it to work, there's not any reason that I
want it.
Yeah, but I just genuinely believe there's going to be a bunch of people who hate the results, at least at first. Because if this is removing a whole bunch of bass resonance in your room, which is absolutely the idea behind it without question is to really cut down on bass resonance in your room and eliminate standing waves. If it does that, there's going to be a whole bunch of people going, "Where did all my bass go?"
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. They pair it with their, Klipsch 10-inch, 100-watt subwoofer that's been farting out God knows what. And they're like, "Oh, I turned it on and my bass all went away." We're like, first of all, that wasn't bass. That was distortion and noise. And second of all, you're welcome.
I mean, the claims that, hey, the mid-range became so much clearer because all the masking effects of the ringing bass have now been eliminated. I'm like, I don't think that's what a lot of people are going to focus on the first time they hear it. The first time they hear it, I think they're going to go, "Where did my bass go?" So, I think, hey, more content for the podcast, that I have little doubt of.
Yeah, we're going to be answering a lot of questions about that garbage for the next 10 years.
I wouldn't imagine until 2024, though. I don't think it's actually coming in 2023.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, so we got not a ton of additional TV news or display news from CES beyond what they covered last week.
Yes,
but we do have some additional details to share. TCL is revamping their TV lineup for 2023. The old 4, 5, and 6 series names are gone. They are now entry-level S, and then Q6, Q7, and QM8 QLED models. Well, that's really easy. That's totally easy.
Sure.
What? Q6, Q7... QM? What does the M stand for?
Mini LED. So that's part of this story.
Okay. They've scaled way back on using mini LED backlights. Only the QM8 series uses them now in screen sizes of 65 to 98 with up to 2300 zones of local dimming. The Q7 series is probably closest to the super popular 6 series of old, but it's just regular LED backlighting now with only 55, 65, and 75-inch sizes. These are all Google TVs, not Roku, so it's possible new Roku models will be announced later this year, but maybe not because, Roku is launching their own branded TVs. These will be entry-level TVs with 11 sizes ranging from 24 all the way up to 75 inches. That 75-inch model is priced at $1,000. Mm-hmm. They didn't confirm the OEM for these TVs, but all indications are that it is TCL.
Yeah. Shocking.
I know. There's too many TVs on the market. That's all I want to say about this. It's very confusing, even for me, and probably somewhat for you as well. But it's it's almost like you have to
straight.
You have to filter through and just remember the models that are good, and just like if I don't recognize the name, it's bad.
Well, at least like in TCL, it's like okay, Q series means quantum dots,
right?
QM means quantum dots and mini LEDs. And that's only the top series, and that's the only one that has an 85-inch and a 98-inch screen size even available. So if you want the big boy sizes, you're getting a QM8 series this year if you're going with TCL. There's not much choice in the matter. And then, yeah, going down on the entry level, it's like, okay, well, you got just the Roku branded TVs. That's pretty much what it's going to be. So at least it does make some sense. I'm kind of sad to not have a true equivalent of the 6 series anymore, though, because that 6 series was a tremendous value, maybe too good a value, because apparently they're not continuing on with all the same features within the same series. But yeah, Q7 comes close enough. I don't really think mini LEDs are genuinely necessary to get great performance. You can still have a lot of local dimming zones and avoid a lot of blooming and haloing with regular LED backlights, so maybe that's what they've done. But it's just 1 to 2 years ago, TCL was so gung-ho about mini LED, and they brought it to like all the series that they could, and now they've scaled that way back.
Hisense. If you want those mini LEDs, Hisense is the brand for you this year. Their U6K, U7K, and U8K series all use mini LED backlights with full array local dimming. They say they've doubled the number of local dimming zones from last year, and the screen sizes range from 55 to 85 inches. They've also decided to bring their high-end ULED X or UX series to North America for the first time this year. It will include a 110-inch 8K model, but also a $5,000 85-inch model that is meant to compete with the top-tier brands. So there you go. Those of you that always wanted a good Hisense, maybe there's something for you.
Yeah, I mean, I have been a fan of the U7 series in particular for the past 2 years. I think if you wanted the absolute least expensive full array local dimming TV that you could get that did pretty much all the gaming things, wouldn't have done Dolby Vision at 120 hertz, but barring that, did pretty much everything else and was a darn good value. I really like that U7 series, and there's no reason for me to expect that the U7K that we're on to this year is going to be any different. So Hisense, maybe, picking up what TCL is dropping. That could be the case.
All right. Nakamichi announced their newest flagship soundbar. There is resurrecting the Nakamichi Dragon branding, and we're going to save the announced price until the end to keep you in suspense, which means it's going to be high. Anyways, they're calling this an 11.4.6 channel soundbar. It's got it's got 4 subwoofers in it. And
that's what the numbers indicate. 4
full-range subwoofers in there, in case you're wondering. The soundbar is the size of a Honda Civic.
Well, it's not small. It's not quite that big, but it's not small.
It's got 31 active drivers and a fully wireless setup other than power cords. It's the first soundbar to have DTS-X Pro on board, so it really is decoding more than just 11.1 channels. Despite calling it 11.4.6, they're actually just 2 subwoofer enclosures. Each has 2 8-inch drivers, so that's how they got the 4. Because
there are 4 8-inch drivers. That is true. But there are 2 enclosures, so you cannot put a driver in each corner of your room or at the midpoint of each wall. There are 2 enclosures, but 4 8-inch drivers.
And you can independently select and adjust the volume for all 4 drivers, so that's how they've decided to call it a 0.4 subwoofer system.
That's right.
The main soundbar unit spans 58 inches across and houses 11 speaker chambers. It includes 3 fold-to-ribbon tweeters for the main channels, while the wides, sides, and up-firing speakers all use 3-inch drivers. 4 out of the 6 total upward-firing drivers are housed in the main unit. They use different angles that they call adaptive height dispersion to create top fronts and top middles. This is dumb. The two wireless surround enclosures have rotatable upward firing drivers on the top so that so that you can adjust the angle depending on where you end up placing the enclosures. The surround and surround back channels are both handled by these enclosures with 2 folded ribbon tweeters in each of them. So that's 5 physical boxes. Okay, so there's 2 subwoofer boxes, 2 surrounds, and then the main thing. I think the main soundbar.
That's
31 drivers. They say it can play 125 dB at 1 meter. That's if you stack them all on top of each other. Put them in the corner. put them inside a cabinet someplace. And they did mention including a room tuning feature. Pre-orders are open now for $3,500.
$3,500. Now, naturally, first reaction anybody's going to have is $3,500. I could put together an immersive audio system that isn't a soundbar.
That is true.
That is true. However, I think it would actually be a challenge to do one that, like, you're not going to do one that is 11 floor level speakers, because that means going to, at a minimum, Emotiva's pre-pro with an add-on module that I don't think they've released yet. They announced it a good 2 years ago, the expansion modules to go beyond the original channel count of 16, but I don't think that expansion module has actually come out, but that would be the minimum, and that is already at, I think, at least $4,000 or $5,000, probably closer to $5,000 once you have the add-on module in that Emotiva. So that would blow past it already. So to actually do 11 floor-level speakers, you're not going to be able to do for $3,500. But assuming you wanted to go to maybe, I don't know, 7.1.4 or 7.2.4 at a minimum, you could do that within this price range. But I mean, just on sheer channel count, they have an argument for how $3,500 is is a bargain, and then they are saying the setup is easier. That's the main selling point. This is for people who apparently want all this but don't want to put any effort into the setup or pay anybody any money to set it up for them, which I don't know how big that market is.
Right, either.
Yeah, I mean, I did notice that in their CES demo, they had the TV really high so that the soundbar could actually be at seated ear level. I was like, yeah, a lot of soundbars would sound better if you could do that, but then your TV is way up there. So in any case, I don't think the market for this is huge. There's going to be Nakamichi fans who are just like, if it says Dragon on it, I'm buying it, even if I can't use it anywhere. But there you go. I can't say I'm super on board with this. This remains in the... There are soundbars out there that I think sound pretty darn good, but for my opinion, all of the ones that do are too expensive, and I would just go get a nice 5.1 setup instead of a soundbar any day of the week over the ones that cost like $1,500 or more, and this one's up at $3,500.
Look at this thing. It's ludicrous.
Yeah, I know.
So we're going to have a link, and it's going to take you to
in case
whatever.
You want to pre-order it. Yeah.
Okay, but you can go, when you go to the link, it's going to start showing you some stupid video. Just hit the arrows until you see the cutaway where it shows all the speakers inside this stupid thing. Yeah. And it's just so dumb. It's just so dumb. Like the 2 side speakers, which I guess are the wide ones, maybe. Or I don't know, but they're actually, it looks like they're not firing straight out. They're actually angled backwards slightly to
almost. It looks like it in the image. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
It's just
a lot. It's a lot in every conceivable way. It's a lot.
I mean, I wish that things like this worked.
Right.
I wish that they did, but I don't think that they do. Unfortunately, that's too bad. Got some comments from listeners. Alan, we went over some over-the-air TV DVR options, and for the tuner itself, we focused on Silicon Dust's HD home run models. He isn't a user himself, but he wanted to mention that there's also Tableau. They have some network tuner models with storage built in if you want, or they have standalone units if all you want is to connect a single TV. Their TV guide service is $50 a year, so it's well within reason amongst the other guide options that we mentioned. He also mentioned the Amazon Fire TV Recast, which he does own and use himself, but that's been discontinued, so
Yeah, the criticism against the Tableau is that they do recompress the video on their network tuners for sending it out to, you know, your little Roku streaming stick or whatever it is, Amazon Fire TV stick that you're using for playback on your TV. So they limit it to 10 megabits per second, which is significantly lower than what's actually coming in over the air. Over the air, you're getting a much higher bit rate than you're getting from your cable provider or from, you know, YouTube TV or whatever subscription service you might have. Over the air is actually delivering like the least amount of compression and the highest bit rate. So having that recompressed is basically the knock against that. And yeah, that's about it. Price is not significantly different in any way for either the hardware or for the guide service. So a perfectly reasonable alternative if you're happy and it's easier for you to get the Tableau service. Some people have said that they find the Tableau network tuner a little bit easier to set up than the HD Home Run. It's a little bit more GUI friendly and a little bit less techy. But other than that, not a huge difference, but a perfectly fine alternative. So thank you for that.
All right. Lastly, we've got Jim. He wanted to sing the praises of AC Infinity Aircom S6 cooling fans that he bought to go on top of his Denon X3600H receiver. He noticed the top of his Denon was getting very hot, particularly about a third of the way back from the front of the receiver. The S6 was easy to position right above where the Denon was hottest, and he couldn't believe how cool to the touch the Denon was after using the AC Infinity with it. Might be the best $50 he's ever spent. And I have I just changed the link, Rob, just so you know,
okay.
To an article over at AV Gadgets that talks about all the different
AC Infinity units. Sure,
yeah,
sure.
Because Andrew uses them too.
That's
right.
It's
one of the very first articles he wrote for me was a review of the unit that he uses, and he agrees it's very good.
Yeah. It's a fan. It's no magic. It's a pretty simple idea, but these ones are quiet, and that's why people like them, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah. And if you're like a slightly more techie and are comfortable setting up computer fans yourself, the first thing that some people will say is, "Oh my God, they're so overpriced compared to what you could do yourself." I'm like, I can't do it myself, so it's worth infinity dollars to me because I can't do it. You know, I need somebody. I need somebody else to do it.
This definitely looks cleaner than the DIY stack of PC fans that you might jumble together.
For sure. Some questions here. Stefan, what will we say is the best 3-channel amplifier to get for home theater use? Well, that's not enough information, is it?
That is how it was posed.
What channel? One would assume that you're powering your front, left, and front, left, right, and center channel speakers.
That would be the assumption, yeah.
There's no reason why it has to be. Maybe you just want to have 3 channels, but you're only going to use it for a couple of your, rear speakers or Atmos speakers. Or maybe, you're going to be powering Magnapans, or you're going to be powering clips. It all kind of depends on which, the mix that you're using here. So there's lots of really good, basically anything made by APC is what I would recommend. It doesn't have to have APC on the front of it. ATI. It doesn't have to have ATI on the front of it.
In fact, it probably wouldn't. I mean, if I have no other information and I just want to tell somebody a 3-channel amplifier that I am very confident will drive anything out there really, really cleanly, I'm going to say go get a Monoprice Monolith 3X. Those go for $1,300. Those have both XLR and RCA inputs, so whatever way you want to hook it up. If it's a dedicated pre-pro with XLRs only, that'll work. If it's an AV receiver with RCA outputs, that'll work too. And those things are stable into anything. They have a really low noise floor. I'd be happy connecting those 200 watts times 3 into pretty much any speakers and feel very confident about the performance of a Monolith 3X. If the Monolith 3X is out of stock or you just want ever so slightly different aesthetics, I mean, really ever so slightly different aesthetics as in the badge and the name on the front of it, AVRant is now selling ATI amplifiers under their Energy amplifier series. So the AVRant Energy 3 is also $1,300 and has identical specs. So yeah, that all makes sense. That all tracks. And I'd be very, very confident using an AVRant Energy 3 as well. So that's sort of my easy blanket answer. Now, for most people, I would say that one of Emotiva's BassX A3 amplifiers, which is RCA inputs only. It does not have XLR inputs. It is not balanced or anything like that. But I would be quite happy for most people getting a BassX A3 if the idea is just to take the most used speakers, take that load off of your AV receiver, an AV receiver that has pre-outs, let your AV receiver drive the surrounds and surround backs and the overhead speakers and the front 3 speakers I'm going to power with an Emotiva BassX A3. Those go for $540, so, less than half the price of the Monolith or the Energy, and I'd be pretty darn confident in most situations. But if someone said, I'm sitting 25 feet away and I'm playing Magnapans, well, then I might go for something with a little bit more power than the BassX A3. So yes, there are other things to consider. If you want to look at something from Emotiva that's very contemporary to that Monolith 3X or AVRant Energy 3. They have their XPA 3 Gen 3. That gives you the XLR inputs. That gives you quite similar wattage. In fact, spec'd a little bit higher wattage and priced $100 more at $1,400. They also have their fully differential reference design, fully balanced from end-to-end design in their XPA DR3, differential reference 3, that goes for $2,200, which is a lot of money, but for a fully differential reference design, honestly darn affordable compared to anything else you might find from another brand. So there you go. It's pretty much all been either ATI as the OEM for Monoprice or AVRant or Emotiva, but I'm very confident recommending any of those. The only other thing I'll mention is if you want the price to be under $1,000, and you'd be fine having a 5-channel amplifier instead of a 3-channel amplifier, because, hey, maybe you'll find a use for those additional 2 channels. Outlaw Audio's Model 5000X is an amp I'm a big fan of, $770, 5 channels times, I think it's 110 watts, or something along those lines. And yeah, that actually does have both RCA and XLR inputs on the back of it. So, 3 decibels quieter, basically, than the other, $1,300, $1,400 ones that we talked about. $770 for 5 channels of amplification. Not bad at all. So, there you go. That could be what you get, too. Which one is the best? I'm going to get an ATI. There, that's my answer.
You have an ATI, so
I sure do.
Maybe just a little bit of disclaimer there.
Yeah.
For Atmos, is there really a huge difference between having 4 overhead speakers versus 2? I will say that Atmos, for the most part, doesn't make a huge difference anyway. So making a huge difference between a minor difference is not that big of a deal to me. But there is no doubt that having 4 overheads is superior to having 2, especially if they're properly placed in there.
It does make a difference.
Yes, it makes a difference. Is it huge?
Right. Very subjective.
I don't know about huge.
I would struggle to say huge, but it makes a difference.
It will steer the sounds better from front to back and back to front, which is kind of what you're going for.
You can hear it. You can notice it. If you're looking out for it, it's there. Yeah. It's a difference. Stuff moves front to back now, and it didn't used to when you only had 2.
Go watch 1899 on Netflix, and then you can hear all the stuff overhead.
I mean, my feeling is if you're gonna do Atmos and you're not just dipping your toe in, like it's not just I just want to see it light up on my AV receiver front panel for the first time. I just want to see if I care about sounds coming from above me whatsoever. If it's more than dipping your toe in, I want to have at least 4 overhead speakers. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense to only be able to move sounds side to side above you. I want to be able to move them forward and back, and there's no way to do that with only 2 of them. So I think 4 is worth it if you know you want an Atmos home theater. But I mean, of course, it's a understandable question because the difference in price from going from a 7-channel receiver to a 9-channel receiver is a pretty big price delta. You can get really nice 7-channel AV receivers for under $1,000 easily. You're up to, $1,500 these days for the 9-channel ones, which most of those can be expanded to 11 as well. But, that's a big price delta that you're looking at. So I get it. But if you're going to do it, I do think 4 is what you want.
So what's the best universal remote control on the market these days? Is Control 4 having the option that's down around the same price as the old flagship Harmony remotes? Even if they did have a remote that was cheaper, you would still have to pay somebody to program it for you.
Yeah, Control 4 is still installer only. They have a little bit more provision for the user doing some things with Control 4 that like Crestron or AMX just wouldn't allow whatsoever. But it is not a user gets to set this up system. And even if you're just adding a new Apple TV to your system, a lot of that can be done remotely by your Control 4 installer, but you still gotta get in touch with your Control 4 installer. So there's nothing that's like the equivalent of the Harmony remotes from anybody, honestly, these days. And Control 4, ever since they got bought up by Snap AV, they've kind of dwindled in the market a little bit. I mean, hopefully they're just reorganizing behind the scenes. It'll come back in a big way, but they've kind of tapered off a little bit ever since that acquisition. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on behind the scenes at Control 4 and Snap AV. But in terms of what can you just go out and buy easily these days, I mean, like, I don't think these are really that great, but the sofa batons are kind of the only game in town. And I know somebody out there is going to talk about the, multiple other Kickstarter things that don't exist yet. And honestly, just almost look like all touchscreen remotes, which is not what we wanted. We wanted some physical buttons. That's why we liked the Harmony remotes. If I just want nothing but a touchscreen, I can use one of the apps on my phone that does this, So the Sofa Baton, what is it? The X1 that goes for $190. That's a hub-based remote, like the last of the Harmonies were. Works with Bluetooth and over Wi-Fi and with infrared, so has all that same functionality. Does not have the whole home automation type of stuff that Harmony was getting into. It just doesn't support that stuff yet. Sofa Baton is continually working. They are doing updates all the time. They are adding new devices to their database all the time, but it's not as slick as Harmony was. I don't have as much of a problem with the X1 as some people do. They fixed the thing where as long as when you pick up the remote, the screen doesn't light up because it doesn't have an accelerometer in the X1 to notice that you've just picked it up. But if all you want to do is like change the volume real quick, it responds immediately to the volume up and down. When it first came out, you had to press a button first to wake it up and then do whatever it is you wanted to do. And people hated that, but they fixed that. So at least you can change the volume immediately without having to press anything to wake it up. And that was like a pretty big deal. But yeah, like... It is the best of what you can actually just buy today.
Right. You can still find Harmonies on like Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that, but they can be highly overpriced. And
yes.
Who knows whether or not they even work or what their problems might be.
That's right. Now I will
the batteries
say
were never swappable, so it's not like
in the Elite. Yeah.
It's not like you can change the batteries out if the battery has gone bad. So.
It's
kind of screwed.
Yeah, it's tough. I will say, if you can get by with infrared only, if you don't need any Bluetooth control, if you don't need any Wi-Fi based control, Sofa Baton's $50 U1 remote as just an IR remote for one system that you're pointing the remote at is actually considerably more capable than you might think at first blush. Once you get into actually programming that thing, there's a lot you can do because you can make any button on that remote a macro. So there's quite a bit more that you can do with that Sofa Baton U1 than you might initially imagine. They only mention in the marketing a single macro button, which is like labeled as the macro button, but it turns out any button on that remote can be a macro, which opens up a lot of possibilities for things that you could do. So if infrared only is all you need, don't overlook the $50 U1. In fact, for $50, you might just want to pick one up and play around with it because it's not much of a risk.
It's just shocking how little I need anything other than infrared. I was testing a projector over the weekend, and my media player is like kind of tucked in the corner over here, and I was like not even trying with the infrared remote that it had. I wasn't trying to point it at it or come around. I was just like pressing the button, and it got there. It bounces off the screen, it bounces around the walls, and it gets there. It was a shocking shock. I mean, there's people who complain, oh, it misses commands all the time. I'm like, mine almost never misses commands, and I'm not even trying. So, all right, Manny. Manny has been remodeling his living room, and it's almost done. He has a TV mounted above the fireplace, although don't show that on Reddit. And the built-in TV speakers aren't cutting it. Right. His budget maximum is $500, and whatever he installed needs to look very, very clean. He's got a spare Pioneer receiver on hand. Doesn't particularly want to use it as it's bulky and would need to be hidden, and there really isn't where to do so close to the fireplace and TV. So it will require running and hiding long wires, which would delay completion of his remodel. So you already have wires running. I can see power cords right there. They're right there.
Yeah. There are
Tell
things.
me you won't have power. You can't run wires.
That's why
I'm looking at wires.
He didn't declare it's actually finished yet. This might have been an earlier picture too. So
no, whatever. So he asked you to go for a soundbar, in-wall speakers, on-wall speakers, slim towers, compact bookshelf speakers on attractive stands. For any option besides a soundbar, he'd want a small 2-channel amp that you could hide behind a TV, and if possible, he'd love for that amp to have at least 2 sets of left and right inputs. What are our suggestions? I suggest you get like KEF-powered speakers. Because they make them, I mean, they're not cheap, but you didn't say anything about cheap, right?
Well, he said $500.
Well,
so...
you know what? This is what I think of your budget. That's what I think of your budget, okay? Too many people walk in with a number. Where did that number come from? They just made it up. They just decided that seems like a reasonable number. You don't know what a reasonable number is. You know why you don't know? Because you're asking us. And
well, how much were those new SVS Prime Wireless Pro speakers? Because I mean, despite the name, they are not wireless only. They have a whole bunch of inputs on the back of those SVS Prime Wireless Pro speakers.
Well, this is why I like the KEF option, is because, you know, he's looking for an attractive. Now, there's a lot of things in here that you're asking for, but then you set this random number that you've decided needs to also be hit, and that's why I'm going to start ignoring people's budgets, because I think that and honestly, you know, and sometimes I'm going to ignore it, and I'm going to have you spend a lot less money, and sometimes I'm going to ignore it, and I'm going to suggest something that's a lot more money. You want something attractive that has all the inputs you want. You want it to be wireless or as wireless as possible. You want it to, you know, to be able to be near your TV. There's the KEF. You know, they have towers, which are really expensive.
Those are like $6,000 at least. Or $7,000 might be. Yeah,
they've got bookshelf speakers of many different sizes that you could try out. I actually reviewed some Fluences, which are going to be closer to this budget.
Yeah. Fluences would be affordable in here. Yeah,
and those are pretty attractive as well. I mean, they're not as attractive as the KEFs, which I think are gorgeous. But you know,
Klipsch has the 5s as well.
Yes,
similar idea. Audio Engine has options here too. So I mean, overall, I guess we can generalize it and say a pair of self-powered speakers. That could be a solution here.
Yeah, because you can put them close enough to the TV that the RCA or the optical that you're going to run to them, which is all you're going to need. Those are going to be, that wire's not going to be very noticeable. I mean, you've already got wires flopping around here anyway, so I don't worry that much about it. But the self-powered speakers just makes your life a lot easier as far as, you know, getting something that you can swap out if you want to and maybe expand upon, because even though pairing them with a receiver isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do right away, because it makes you have a receiver that has pre-outs. At least you have the option of adding them to a receiver later on. You get yourself a soundbar, you get yourself like dedicated computer speakers, which I see a lot of people doing, like, oh, I've got these Logitech computer speakers. No, just get some actual bookshelf speakers and put them in here. I'll put a link in here for the Fluence.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't disagree with that idea at all. It does give you the placement flexibility that would allow you to, you know, if you're aesthetically able to put them in the best positions, you know, get your better imaging and all that sort of thing. Looking at what the setup is, I mean, first of all, if this is exactly the way it is, there's exceedingly no space below the bottom of the TV and the top of the fireplace mantle, so it would require at least a little bit of movement to fit even a soundbar in there. But I did think this is sort of an appropriate situation for the only soundbar I feel comfortable recommending, which is Vizio's M512H6. That is a genuine 3-channel soundbar up at the front. It actually has dedicated center speaker drivers in that thing, unlike a lot of soundbars that that are marketed as 3.1, but only have a stereo pair of drivers in them. So the Vizio M512H6 does go for $500. It goes on sale frequently for $400, and it got all the way down to $350 or $300 during Black Friday, which was a crazy price and would have been lovely to snap it up then. But one thing here is, none of the systems that he talked about included a subwoofer, so this gives you a wireless sub that can at least fill in some of that bottom range, and being wireless and fairly compact can be moved all around the room. And no, it's not a 20 hertz sub, but it is like a genuine 35, 30 hertz sub. The Vizio subs are not terrible, at least in this package, so I feel pretty good about recommending that. If you're just like, I don't want speakers that are sticking out in the room in any way, I wouldn't be a huge fan of, like, if he was worried about delaying completion of this theater, I wouldn't do an in-wall speaker, because that's a whole installation, but on-wall might work. And for the price point that he indicated, I was thinking that ELAC's on-walls, the OW4s, as part of their debut 2.0 series, wouldn't be a bad choice in here. I don't know if they would suit the aesthetic that you're going for. They're just very plain little black boxes, but sound good, hang on the wall easily. So ELAC's OW4.2 on-walls go for $305 a pair over at Amazon right now. So that means you have money left over in the $500 budget for that little amplifier that you were talking about. I would point you to Fosse's DA2120. That one in particular, because it does have optical and just regular RCA inputs. So your TV could go to the optical input, and then your other source that you said you wanted left-right inputs, you'd have those inputs available. It does have... let's see, coaxial as well. So there's actually 2 digital inputs that you could get to choose from, and it has a subwoofer output. So if you do want to add a subwoofer to it, it would be quite easy to do so with the DA2120 from Fosse. The images, don't let them fool you. It looks a little bit bigger in the images, but when you put it up against speakers, it is a compact little thing that can quite easily fit behind your television, as long as there's a little bit of a gap back there, and comes with everything you need to hook it up. So I like that as a choice. That goes for, what is it, $180? So there you go. If you pair that up with the ELACs, you're under the $500 mark.
Yeah, I don't know any of my suggestions hit his budget.
All right. The flu wants a should. The flu wants a should.
Vasanth. I like that name. That's fun to say. He's in India. So the last person we had contact us from India had a completely marble home. If I remember correctly, some sort of castle. He was initially on board with the idea of getting a TV with perfect black levels, such as an OLED. That would obviously be desirable, but then he started questioning that notion. For one thing, he got into looking up which cameras are used to shoot all of today's movies, and he learned that pretty much all of them include an LCD screen for monitoring what is being shot, while those companion LCD screens are calibrated, and higher quality than consumer LCD screens are still ACD and don't have perfect zero-nit black levels. Then you got to looking up what's being used in the mastering studio rooms where movies are edited and put together, and they're often using a projection setup that's typically a 3-chip DLP like most commercial movie theaters use, and even when it's IMAX, the projectors don't have perfect black levels. When he went to see Dunkirk in IMAX, he noted how, due to the switching aspect ratio, he could see the black bars during the 70mm portions of the movie. Those black bars were not perfectly inky black, so when he compared how Dunkirk looked on the OLED, he actually felt the black levels looked too dark. Mm-hmm. And the way it looked on the Sony X90J LCD reminded him more of what he saw at the IMAX theater. So if our goal is to adhere to the creator's intent, and what they intended was for you to see their movie in theaters, why are we going for perfect zero-nit black levels? It doesn't seem like that's what the people who shot, edited, and finalized the movies for theaters were looking at any stage during the making of this film. So could it be that a projection setup or an LCD TV is actually closer to looking the way it was intended? You, my friend, have spent way too much time thinking about this. I cannot stress enough that you have spent way too much time thinking about this. This is the thing, okay? Let's just be absolutely dead clear here.
Okay.
If you are going for creator's intent, mm-hmm. and you want to see the movie the way the creator intended you to see it, mm-hmm. you would have a perfect display that could put out exactly what was being fed to it, without any variation. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Without any distortion, without any crunching of
no
nits
tone
or
mapping,
nothing.
No gamma curves
what
applied.
What came in would come out.
Yes.
Okay. Then, if the creator wanted you to see gray blacks instead mm-hmm. of black blacks, it would display gray blacks.
Such as the blackness of space in Star Wars movies, which you'll always notice is not as black as the black bars at the top and bottom. That's encoded.
So to buy a display that is not as capable as another display, with the idea being it's closer to what the creator used to see it, is, well, I mean, the flaw in that logic should be obvious by what I just said. Okay, you want the most accurate equipment so that you see exactly what they intended. You won't know that you're doing that if what you have is not accurate and you bought it because you think it's what they used. And remember, it's what you think they used and what you think they saw and what you think they were seeing in all these different places. You don't know. You don't know that they didn't take it home and look at it on OLED and go, these blacks aren't black enough, fix it, and then take it back. You don't know that they didn't do that. Okay, what you do know is that you have an option for a very accurate TV versus a not as accurate TV, and you're choosing the not accurate one because of overthinking this entire thing, my friend. You're overthinking it. Get the OLED.
Yeah, I mean, I will certainly say, I think if you were to talk to most directors, they would say that, yeah, like if the theater display could be blacker, they would go for that.
Yeah,
I think most of them, maybe not all. Maybe there's a Christopher Nolan out there or something who would say something different. Not that I'm saying he would, but he's the type that might if it were anybody. But I think most of them would say no, that they would like that. For example, HDR really is changing every aspect of what you just mentioned. The monitors that are used, the mastering monitors that are used for creating HDR content, they are either OLEDs or they're the dual panel LCD screens, where it's like 2 layers of LCD, one doing just the black and white part of it, and then a second layer doing the color on top of that. But it's so that they get black levels and contrast that equals OLED, typically in a very narrow viewing angle, but that's fine for a 30-inch monitor that you're only ever staring at face on. So the mastering monitors for HDR, or then if we go to like Dolby's own Pulsar, which is the one they use if they want to go up to 4,000 nit content, it's one of the few displays out there that can do that. Nit for nit, it'll go up to 4,000 nits accurately, and that's the Dolby Pulsar. All of those do have, I mean, if not literally perfect 0 nit black levels, like in the case of the dual LCDs, darn close to it. So those things, and like Netflix is using that for all the stuff that they make, they're showing all of their content on OLEDs when they're mastering it. So that is changing, right? What you're saying is not untrue. It has been the case for a long time. The dubbing stages are projection. They are using 3-chip DLP. Now, with the Dolby cinemas, they have 6-chip DLP, which is like a similar thing to those dual panel LCDs. 3 of those DLP chips are just used to darken the black levels before it goes to the second set of 3 DLP chips that then apply the color dithering in the DLP system. So, all of this effort is there in the industry to get to those as close to 0 nit black levels as we can, to get that dynamic range for HDR content to be considerably higher than what we ever had in the SDR days. So I agree with Tom. I think you've thought yourself into a situation that isn't correct in our opinion. Right. Again, HDR has changed the way signals are delivered. In the SDR days, everything was delivered on a curve, and there wasn't really a genuine, like, this is exactly how many nits the signal is saying to make. It's a difference between steps, but not an exact amount. In HDR, it's an exact amount. The signal says, this signal means this many nits, and no other. You can mess with that, but, in the settings, but that's what the signal is actually saying in HDR signals, is exactly this many nits for whatever signal it is that's coming in. So I think that's changed all of this, and there's no way I would go back. Like, when I'm watching a movie that has black bars on my OLED, that is correct. I'm not supposed to see the black bars. That's supposed to be an absence of screen. And when those black bars match the tiny little thin black border of the screen and you cannot notice them at all, that is correct. That's what those black bars were supposed to be. It's not that when you went to the IMAX theater and you were able to see the black bars, that's right. That's a compromise they had to make because the technology doesn't exist to make those black bars any blacker in the IMAX theater. So, yeah, that's where we land.
So its current AV receiver is a Yamaha RX V673. It has HDMI 1.4, not 2.0 or 2.1, but for the moment it does everything he needs for on the video side of things. He was considering getting a Denon X3700H, but primarily for Atmos, and after listening to us, he's come to the conclusion that he doesn't really need Atmos all that badly either. He's decided to put his money towards acoustically treating his room instead.
That I will clap to.
That
for sure.
was a good man.
Yes.
That is exactly what I would have recommended. If you had said, should I get a new receiver or for Atmos or should I get room treatments, I would have said room treatments 100 out of 100 times.
Yeah, yeah.
So with his Yamaha receiver still in place, it can power 7 speakers with the option for 6th and 7th speakers to be either surround backs, which is what he has right now, or front present speakers, which is the same as front heights, but just using upmixing, which was proprietary to Yamaha, and whatever they did heights before they were cool.
I'm pretty sure it did have Dolby Pro Logic 2Z
right.
still on that model going back there. So yeah, but it's front heights in position, but it's not the same as front heights for Atmos because his receiver is old enough it doesn't decode Atmos or DTSX. Yeah.
He did some tests and found that his surround back speakers really don't seem to be adding much to experience.
Tom is shaken.
Gasp! This is a gasp of totally real shock and not at all fake shock.
It's all right. I think he'll recover, folks.
I don't know. There's a cardiac surgeon in the midst.
That's right.
He's found that he's using Netflix and Amazon Prime Video a lot more these days, and when he disconnected other speakers so that he could just hear what the surrounds and surround backs were playing, he found the surround backs were often just duplicating what's in the surround speakers. Strange. It's a strange thing. He tried setting a system to just 5.1 instead of 7.1. Honestly, couldn't hear any significant difference. Should he deploy that extra pair of speakers as front presence instead? Will that enhance his listening experience, or would that actually be a downgrade in any way? Well, it obviously isn't a downgrade because the surround back speakers aren't doing crap. Number one. Number two, be prepared to be completely underwhelmed.
Yes, be prepared to be very underwhelmed.
Be prepared to go, I should just put these speakers in the closet someplace because they're clearly not doing anything and I could save them for later. Unfortunately, like almost everything in this world, even if you just take your speakers and put them in the closet and not use them, they will still age and eventually break just from not doing anything. And that happens. If you think about your car, if you parked your car in a garage for a year and you walked out there and turned the key, you would not be shocked when it didn't start. It's just the way things are. You know, things age and corrode and everything else. So using the speaker a little bit is actually better for the speaker than not using it at all.
Probably, yeah.
So I would find some place to put it. Try it. First of all, try it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Just try it. It costs you nothing but time and a little bit of effort. But I don't think that you're going to be you may go, oh my God, these presence speakers are so amazing. Clint really liked them. Like to understand presence speakers, however long you've been in this industry or you've been in this hobby, think about how long I've been in this hobby, and presence speakers have been around since before that. Okay,
yeah.
Presence speakers have been around for a very long time. And when Clint first set up presence speakers in his home theater, which had a projection screen, so it was a bigger image than most people were rocking back in that day, he felt like the presence speakers did add something, and he was happy with it. I have front height speakers, and I never thought to myself, boy, I'm glad I did that. But that's just, that's me. So I agree with you. I think the surround back speakers, for the most part, are in most rooms don't do much, and what they do you can live without and never really notice that you're missing something.
I'm quite confident you could survive without them. That
well,
you will not literally pass away. In
I
the
don't
absence
think
of
that they would
speakers.
that you would actually ever sit there and go, wow, there seems to be a sonic hole behind me, which is what some people seem to think when they've got their couch pushed up against the back wall, and then side surrounds right next to the couch, and then surround backs like right above their heads pointing straight down. Like this is, you're not missing, you won't be missing anything by having the surround backs not be there. So try the front presence. You might find it's beneficial. And you might find that it doesn't do much.
If you're willing to, I'd absolutely say give them a try. On the other hand, if you know just because of whatever layout of your room, it's going to be a really big hassle.
Yeah.
I will definitely say that back in the old Dolby Pro Logic 2Z days, back in the DTS, what was it, Neo X days, when they added the front heights, that was probably the least impressive change I have personally ever felt in my system was adding front heights. I didn't feel like they did a whole lot of anything in my system. It wasn't that they made anything worse, so it's not that type of thing. I wouldn't call it a downgrade to the sound. But I didn't think they enhanced things very much at all. So if it's a gigantic hassle to install your front heights, I wouldn't bother. But if it's fairly easy, just give it a try and see what you think.
Yeah. And honestly, like I said, if your speakers are going to age and perhaps corrode or whatever, or go bad,
I'll do a Zone 2.
Just find some use for them someplace. And the Zone 2 is not a bad use either.
Yeah.
Karl loved Avatar: The Way of Water. He went to see it 4 times so far, so that's like 16 hours of his life he's never getting back.
Yeah.
But he isn't a super fan of 3D. He was actually hoping to see it in 2D, but still with high frame rate. He reached out to the owner of Alamo Drafthouse Theaters, who was able to confirm with a distributor that a 2D HFR high frame rate version exists. But Karl still couldn't find any showings in the format where he lives. So, whatever. Any idea if any theaters were actually showing it in 2D HFR, or high frame rate? And more importantly, at this point, what about the home release? Do we know if it will offer a 2D high frame rate presentation? I imagine that's all it's going to offer, to be honest with you. But this is probably going to be the last disc that hits until the next
James Cameron
movie comes out, where he's like, this one's also in 3D. So I imagine it's going to come out. So.
I think it'll be in high frame rate, because I mean, we've had the 2 Ang Lee movies, at least on Ultra HD Blu-ray. We had Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk and Gemini Man that were in high frame rate. So being James Cameron, I would think the Ultra HD Blu-ray will come out in high frame rate. I don't know that for sure. Blu-ray.com has a placeholder listing for it, but all the specs haven't been filled in for the disc yet. So I wouldn't actually be shocked either way as far as the home release, but I think, since James Cameron tends to get pretty involved with the home release, that this will probably be a high frame rate on the Ultra HD Blu-ray. It won't be on the regular Blu-ray, so that'll probably be in the package too, so that'll be your option for if you want to see it in 24, you watch the regular Blu-ray. If you want to watch it in high frame, you watch the Ultra HD Blu-ray. I'm betting that's what the case is going to be. As far as theaters showing it in 2D high frame rate, there actually were a couple theaters in my area that had exactly that. They had the 3D HFR high frame rate showing and the regular HFR showing without 3D, the 2D presentation. So such theaters did exist, can confirm. They existed in my area, so there it is.
That's right, move to Canada. Paul has only just started adding room treatments to his home theater. He got 3 panels to begin, and then being in Canada, he got them from Acoustic Panels Canada. They look very nice, and he's found them easy to mount at $75 to $85 each for their most affordable 2-inch thick 2x4 foot panels, and $115 each for nicer fabric, and a kind of ridiculous $300 for their 4-inch thick bass traps. He found them a bit expensive. But when you factor in shipping from GIC or Acoustimac from the US to Canada, these are still much more affordable. So for Canadians, is there a better alternative? He'd like to add more panels, but price adds up quick. Also, is there any reason to avoid Acoustic Panels Canada? He can't actually recall how he came across them in the first place.
It might have been us, because I have mentioned them in the past.
I was going to make a joke, but then you killed it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Stepped on the joke. I didn't know.
You should do them yourself, is what you should do. I mean, if you don't want to, it is kind of tricky in Canada. There's certainly no reason to avoid Acoustic Panels Canada. There's nothing wrong with their panels. Nothing particularly amazing about them. It's basic wood frames with some rock wool insulation inside them and some fabric of your choice over the top of them. So there's no magic going on here, but neither is there from GIC or Acoustimac or any of the other ones that we talk about. So no reason to avoid them. The basic panels,
Yeah, I mean, just the base price, even with the exchange rate, is a little bit higher, but once you factor in shipping, it's more affordable to get the 2-inch panels from Acoustic Panels Canada. I can't quite explain why their bass traps are so much more expensive. Like, it would literally be cheaper to get 2 of their 2-inch panels and just stack them on top of each other than it would be to get a single bass trap, which I can't explain that. I don't know why it's ended up priced that way over there. So, yeah, that's tough because, I mean, we want panels to be as thick as they can. Their 2-inch panels are 2 inches thick. They don't incorporate an air gap into the frame, so you can make your own little air gap with, whatever bracket it is you're using to hang it on the wall. But, they are just 2 inches thick, their basic panels. So I don't have a better Canadian place to point you to right now. Believe me, if I did, I would be buying panels from whatever that source would be. I find the Acoustic Panels Canada price just a little, because I want the 4-inch ones. I don't want the 2-inch ones. I want 4 inches minimum. So I find that a little bit too high for my taste. So yeah, I don't have a better resource to point you to. I wish I did. The only alternative is making your own, which, yeah, that's about it. I'm sorry. I wish I had better news.
Yeah, so I did link up the article that Andrew posted over at AV Gadgets about him making his own panels and what he went through. And it's, I mean, I think in Canadian dollars, he made 8 panels for $256.
Right. Like less than a single 4-inch panel from Acoustic Panels Canada. So, yeah. I've been toying. I haven't tried this to report back. If some person listening to this wants to give it a try and report back, I would love it. I've been toying with the notion of, for making the frame, since wood is still abnormally expensive right now, and you do, for these types of things, not want to just get, bare lumber that has any twists or warps or bends or anything in it. Could you just use corner bead? Could corner bead work for making the frame like that? That'd be super easy if you could just use corner bead. And I'm trying to think in my head why it wouldn't work. I mean, other than you might end up with some sharp corners that would quite easily tear the fabric. I mean, as long as you're careful with overlapping the corners, I'm like, could you make frames out of corner bead? Because that's dirt cheap. So if somebody wants to give that a try and report back, please do.
There you go. Kevin used to have his home theater area set up in his living room. Even by his own admission, it was a bit ridiculous, with a pair of DIY Sound Group $12.99 towers up front, 2 GSG full Marty 18-inch subs on either side of his couch, and another 2 18-inch VBSS subs behind the couch. Yeah, this is dumb.
I mean, he wanted liftoff from his chair is what he was going for. I mean, those things were probably turned up to half, not even one on the volume dial.
Yeah.
Half of one.
Yeah.
Yes.
But now he has completed his basement home theater, so the gigantic subwoofers have been moved there. The large tower speakers are staying in the living room, though. With the theater complete, the living room system is really only being used for music and for watching kids' TV shows. He already ran lots of wires inside the walls, so he's feeling a bit of a sunk cost situation, but he's basically wondering if we can talk him into just using 2 channels set up in his living room. Here's some of his thinking. He's got a central equipment rack intended to hold all of his AV gear. It's maxed out now, since it currently has to hold the Anthem separate setup he got for the basement theater, plus 2 AV receivers, one of which powers the living room. If he goes to a 2-channel living room setup, he could just use Zone 2 and remove 1 receiver from the rack. The center speaker is in the ceiling. He's noticed how it never sounded right. Did you notice that?
Yeah. Especially trying to have it match up with those gigantic DIY Sound Group towers. That seems unlikely.
Did you say something about timbre matching, maybe? I don't know.
Right, yes.
The surrounds are where the surround back should be, which that doesn't bother me as much. And there are 2 more in-ceiling speakers that you used as top middles in the 5.4.2 configuration. The left side of the room is open to the kitchen. He's such a surround sound fan. It sort of goes against his instincts to only use 2 speakers in there. But there are thoughts. Would a downgrade to 2-channel make sense? Okay, let's go back to what he's going to be using it for. Music and watching kids' shows.
That's what he said.
In what world do you need more than 2 speakers for this? I mean,
my only concern is not having any subwoofers in this room.
I have no concern about that. It's kids' TV shows.
Well, I'm not, but for the music, I'm not worried about the kids' TV shows pretty much at all.
He's not worried about music either. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, those massive. Well, I agree that he's not going to get the all of the bass that he should be able to get. Or
like, I don't have any concerns about those tower speakers being able to produce all the bass in music. Those towers can play down to 32 hertz. I'm not worried about them generating 32 hertz from those two big towers that he's got, but you know, they're already less than optimally placed just so that they can physically fit into this space. I have concerns about what the actual bass frequency response is at the seats if those towers are playing full range. So
TV's too high. He's only.
I know.
I mean, he's only watching kids. But
I mean, you know, if they are listening to music's fairly frequently on this system,
I bet they're not sitting there between those two speakers while listening to that
probably
music.
not. It's probably just blasting it out of the room while they're in the kitchen.
That's right. It's just filling up the space with music. Who cares, Rob?
But what I'm getting at is this is a man who has more of a mental block in doing this because, I mean, he already knows the answer, right? Which is, yeah, 2-channel makes sense in this room. Yeah. Like he's looking for us to convince him that he can abandon surround sound in this room. You definitely should abandon that in-ceiling center speaker. You should have abandoned that the moment it was conceived of, let alone installed.
If you said you were going to just use the in-ceiling center channel and then the side surrounds as your music, I'd be like, yeah, that's fine too.
But I mean, I don't think this is, you know, genuinely that we really have to push that hard to convince him that, yeah, those 2 tower speakers in here minus the in-ceiling center and the much, much smaller improperly placed surround speakers is really that bad of a thing. But I'm just saying, if he's got the mental block of I can't get away from I'm a surround sound guy, if we now say, hey, this is actually a good opportunity to go to a 2.2 channel setup, not 18-inch subs, those were ridiculous, but you could do like a 2.2 channel setup in here, and now you know, now we found a middle ground where you get to add a little something, you get to change a little something.
This man has no filter when it comes to size of subwoofers. You need
it doesn't seem so.
No more subwoofers for you in here. No, because you're just gonna. I mean, look how ridiculously large this whole. If you're not looking at the Flickr album, you've got to go look. If you're not watching this on YouTube, go to the Flickr album, scroll down. We don't have to tell you which one it is, which image it is, because when you get there, you'll go, "This must be what they're talking about." It's ludicrous.
Yeah, no, those subs were not intended for the living room. They were intended for the basement theater all along.
Yes, I understand that.
Being utilized up here. But I mean, hey, he could go for some sealed Marty subs, since he seems to be a fan of building his own equipment. He could go for some sealed Marty subs. They got smaller versions. You know, they get an excuse to do another project, put a couple of sealed ones in this living room, and there you go. 2.2, I think, could be a happy middle ground in all of this.
Yeah, just go 2-channel pure direct. It's the only time I'm ever going to say those words. That's all. That's it. Only time I'm going to say it. You've got no acoustic treatments in here whatsoever.
Yeah,
You've got,
hard floor.
Hard floor. I mean, the bass is going to be doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
The
last thing I want in this space is a subwoofer, much less 4. I mean, it's for me. Go 2-channel and forget the subwoofers, forget the surrounds, kill that center channels in the ceiling with fire.
I'm saying go to the 2 towers bit, but add a couple of smaller subs in here.
Right. Yeah. They don't intend to go much larger than 55-inch TV above the fireplace. He does intend to get a mantle mount so the TV can be pulled down and forward. This current TV is a Panasonic Plasma. Would going for Samsung's The Frame be a terrible choice? The nice aesthetics would be appreciated, but he's worried it can't stack up to an OLED's picture quality. What do we think? I think that I don't know much about The Frame other than most people who care about video hate it. Because they say it doesn't.
Yeah, I ain't a big fan of
and plus, it's the whole quality. Idea that it kind of like has a special mount that mounts it into the wall. So I'm like, the mount would not work with a frame TV, I thought.
Well, I mean, it'll function with
it'll function, but it kills the whole aesthetic.
Yeah, it's not the intended installation.
Yeah, no. I would not do this.
The other thing is LG's OLEDs have what they call gallery mode,
right?
Which can display either artwork that is already loaded on the TVs or you can download. They have regular updates that update the galleries. You can download artwork on them, or it can be set to show your own photos. that you just put on there with a USB stick. So if you just want I don't just want a plain black glossy rectangle up there all the time. I'd like it to be able to display artwork, which is the purpose of Samsung's The Frame. LG's gallery mode on their OLEDs can achieve basically the same thing. So yeah, you're using more power because the TV's still on while it's doing it, but it doesn't have all the processing active and everything when it goes into gallery mode, so it is less power than when it's just showing a full-blown TV show. And yeah, I think that's what I would do. I wouldn't sacrifice on the picture quality by going with a edge-lit LCD display just so that it can show art images when it's not being used as a TV. I would get an OLED and use gallery mode.
Yeah. Jay got a Panasonic S5 digital camera. It has a micro HDMI connector, a Type D. The maximum bandwidth it would ever need is 18 gigabits per second, so he went looking for a high-speed premium certified cable, but they don't seem to be any that are regular HDMI to micro HDMI. No, they're certified anyway. He was thinking he'd rather get an adapter. That way he could just keep the short adapter with the camera at all times and not have to worry about only having one specific micro HDMI cable with a fixed length. And he could use any certified HDMI, high-speed premium HDMI cable with the adapter. But will the adapter have any sort of negative impact on the signal? You couldn't find any adapters that are certified either. Welcome to the wonderful world of HDMI. Yeah. So any suggestions for what to get would be appreciated. So, what do you know? I don't know, Rob. What do you got? I'm going to get coffee.
Yeah.
Is this going to take a second? You could,
long enough. I can go on if you need to. It'll be fine. Yep. So, I wasn't able to find any adapters or micro HDMI to HDMI cables that were, certified in any way either. So it's not just that your Google Foo was lacking or something. I wasn't able to find certified ones. So I just went with a brand that I trust, which is Cable Matters. Cable Matters has micro HDMI to HDMI adapters that they claim will pass 48 gigabits per second, HDMI 2.1 signals, so all the way up to 4K 120 or 8K 60. There is no physical reason why a cable this short shouldn't be able to manage that bandwidth, and Cable Matters is a brand that I trust. So I don't have really any misgivings. Like, this is going well beyond the 18 gigabits per second that your camera actually needs, but why not, basically. So I only found them being sold in a 2-pack over at Amazon, but it's $12.50 for the 2-pack, so I don't think that's breaking the bank in any way or going to be any sort of a problem. The only other note I wanted to make on this is, when you're using an adapter like this, I would not recommend that the regular HDMI cable that you're using to get whatever length you need, I would not use an active HDMI cable or a fiber optic HDMI cable. I would use a passive HDMI cable. When you are plugging it into a little pigtail adapter like this, it tends to be that the active or fiber optic HDMI cables don't get along with pigtail adapters. So I would stick to a regular passive HDMI cable for the length. Anything that is, high-speed premium certified, so the monoprice ones would be an easy, great choice for very little money, and I think that'll do the job.
I just installed some of those. I got, Monoprice sent me, they asked me if I needed any HDMI cables. I was like, anything that's high-speed certified, full 48 gigabits per second, which I don't know if they sent me full 48 gigabits, but they said, which ones do you want? And I told them which one. They're like, we don't have any of those. I'm like, okay, why don't you just tell me, like, these are the lengths I need.
Yeah.
All right. Like, I wanted some to go between the gear that's on my rack, which is only like 3 to 6 feet. I wanted one to go to the front of the room for like short throw projectors, and one to go to the back of the room for a regular projector. So a 20-foot one and like a 50, 60-foot one.
Yeah.
And they didn't have any 60, 50. So I'm like, I don't care. Just give me something. So that I hooked some up the other day for my between my Xbox Series X and my Ultra HD Blu-ray player to my my AV receiver. And then when I did test, like I said last week, and I will talk about it next week when the review comes out, ultra short throw projectors. So I used the 20-foot one to test the ultra short throw projector directly from my Sony UDP X700.
700, I think, is the one you got. Yep.
Ultra HD Blu-ray player work great. The fiber optic ones don't feel like they're right.
Oh.
They're so thin. You're like, this can't be right.
Oh,
this doesn't feel right. And then you have to get used to the whole. One side is the source, and one side is the the destination.
Which, boy, oh boy, that seems to trip up a lot of people. I mean, it's printed right on there.
Right there. I mean, it's the first thing I noticed when I picked up the cable. It says it right there. But some people are like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, okay. Reading. Jason, Yamaha announced their new Hi-Fi R-N2000A network integrated amp priced at $4,000. They're touting rock solid build quality. Whoever said they went, yeah, we kind of just half-assed it. I mean, it's like a bunch of recycled aluminum, and it's kind of flimsy and doesn't have any.
It's above and beyond the V series AV receivers. For $4,000.
It's got 6 feet instead of 5.
It only has 4. I was bewildered. This doesn't even have the Yamaha
How do they call
this
thing quality if it only has 4 feet?
No, doesn't.
If you don't know what we're talking about, you have not listened to this podcast long enough. Number one. Number two, Yamaha started touting their 5th foot a million years ago, and everybody went, "What?"
For the solid state AV receiver with no moving parts
needs a 5th foot.
Got to be stable in the middle of that thing.
Yeah, God. It's because they put all the heat sinks right smack dab in the middle. They're touting rock solid build quality top end ESS Saber DACs with a toroidal transformer inside powering balanced amplifiers, and unlike a lot of audiophile 2-channel gear, it can accept digital signals, including an HDMI ARC connection. And it offers a subwoofer output along with room correction in the form of YPOW RSC, which is not bad. It's pretty
reflected sound control.
While $4,000 isn't cheap, Jason thinks it's much more reasonable than a lot of the 2-channel gear. Well, that just says more about the 2-channel gear than it does about this particular piece of equipment, but whatever. And in his opinion, the only things missing are bigger VU meters on the front and a moving coil phono stage rather than moving magnet only. Fair. That last one is fair enough. That's fair.
I guess.
Maybe if you're into that sort of thing.
Nah.
I'm sure Andrew would agree with you. I keep having to pull him back from the vinyl edge of audiophileness. In Jason's mind, a product like this represents sanity for the audiophile crowd, higher end build quality, and components for a dedicated 2-channel setup, but not sacrificing on features or stubbornly sticking to analog only. But to be interested to hear our opinions about it, does the price point and having room correction and digital inputs potentially hurt it? Or is there a crowd that will see this as a no-brainer for its combination of features and component quality? This is a product without a market. I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, it's Yamaha fans, right?
Yes, really, that's
Yamaha
what it is.
Fans, and there are plenty of those
fans
out there
that want to have a 2-channel setup, and they want. It is such, and that's why it's $4,000. It's not $4,000 because there's $4,000 worth of crap stuck in this thing, because there's not. This thing is, I mean, what? It's about as probably got as much components in there as one of their middling or mid to low tier.
I mean,
AV
I will
receivers.
say that the amplifiers themselves that they've put in here, I mean, these are top end, fully balanced amplifiers that they put in there. So if you look at something similar from, say, Emotiva or Monolith, right? That alone is going to be from those brands like in the $1,000 price range for the 2-channel amp. Now, I would expect that to be double that. Just coming from a brand like Yamaha, that would be like $2,000 for them to release a similar amplifier versus mono price or Emotiva.
Right.
So we're halfway there for the amplifiers alone. I don't really think that the other $2,000 for, I mean, fairly basic network connection and DACs and 2-channel connections really justifies another $2,000, no matter how amazing the completely black outside chassis is, and minus the 5th foot, my goodness. But, all in all, like I see how they get to this price point for the crowd they're going after. Yeah. I don't see them convincing very many people who are like analog only. You're not going to convince them to come digital. The people who are like, if it costs less than, a car, it can't be any good. I don't think you're going to convince them. So this is for a certain group of Yamaha fans. I think that's the market. And I think they know that. And that's why they've priced it at a price point where they can make these a little bit more mass-produced because they're Yamaha than some of the really esoteric brands. And they have an idea I think they have an idea of how many they expect to sell of these.
Yeah.
I think they know their own market pretty well, and they're saying, here's where it makes some amount of financial sense to make and release and sell this thing, and this is the price point that it needs to be for all of those numbers to line up. Yamaha's not a dumb company when it comes to doing business, so I think they figure that all out. Oh, no.
Yeah. So what you're saying, I have to scroll up, Jason, is that you think that that there's audiophiles out there that have been like toying with the idea of room correction and wanting to have some bass management and wanting to have HDMI, but there's been no products out there that can fill that void for them, so they're stuck buying $20,000 integrated amplifiers. And now this $4,000 one comes out, and they're going to be like, "Thank you, Yamaha, you're my savior." Those people
there might be one or two.
No, those people don't exist. They're a phantom. They should exist. No, they should be out there. There should be people in this audiophile crowd who are like, boy, I want to have all this audiophile crap, but I also want to have all the new technology too.
Yeah.
And but that Venn diagram does not cross. It's just two circles next to each other, not very close together at all. So I agree. This should be a product that should excite people, but it doesn't. It's not going to. The people who don't want it aren't going to start wanting it, and the people who just want to have something Yamaha and 2-channel, they already wanted it, and they probably filled out a survey saying so, and that's why Yamaha made it. I guess.
Right.
So
I wanted to use this as a bit of an opportunity to go on a little bit of a rant that I've had in my mind, because it's actually something I want to clarify that I'm sure applies to Tom and I know applies to myself. When we're getting into this whole much more expensive equipment, whether it's home theater, multi-channel, or whether it's 2-channel only, and this sort of ever-increasing, and if the price is higher, there must be a difference, sort of mentality that a lot of people seem to fall prey to, there's what I just call the "but I heard it" phenomenon, right? Which is, I listened to AVRant all these years. I felt what they said about AV receivers in most modest-sized room with reasonably easy-to-drive speakers made sense, but then I went to separates, and I heard it. I heard it. They said that there shouldn't be this great audible difference, but I heard it. So how could it be anything else? I want to assure, because I haven't made this clear, I want to assure everyone out there listening to this that I heard differences too. All along, in all of my home theater career, when I switched out a piece of equipment and spent, significantly more money on the new version than on the old version that I was replacing, and I put it in there, I heard a difference until I didn't know that the difference was made. Right? That's the real key. That's the thing that changed everything. Because I will swear up and down that I heard a difference. And I think if you stuck me in an fMRI machine and looked at my brain waves, there probably really was a difference in my brain when I swapped out the piece of equipment and expected that I should hear a difference because I just spent $3,000 on this one to replace one that used to cost $500 if it's, an AV receiver or something. And I heard the difference. I would swear to you up and down that I heard the difference. And there would be not a spot of a lie in me saying that. Yeah. I 100% believed it. Until I did properly done blind listening tests. And it was never any better than a coin flip. If it was that, and it's bizarre. It's almost incomprehensible to wrap your head around because I would swear up and down I heard the difference. How could it be that the difference was that obvious? I was never the person to say night versus day because I didn't want to exaggerate to that degree, but I was absolutely confident that I would be able to tell one from the other. It was easy. How could you not? It was blatantly obvious. And then a properly done blind listening test is like, it's a coin flip. I can't reliably tell these things apart. And it is incomprehensible to wrap your head around because the but I heard it is so darn convincing. And how can you say otherwise? Now, I don't have any problem with someone. They've earned their money. They want to spend it on a new piece of audio gear. They get it. I heard the difference, and they're happy with it. That's all good. That's all fine in my book. I don't have any beef with that. But it's putting yourself into debt to do it. I'm not cool with that. It's telling everybody else that this is what they need to do to get to the next level of audio. I'm like, before you do that, do the blind listening test, because that doesn't even have to cost a lot of money. It just needs to be meticulous, which is difficult and takes time, but that's all it needs to be. It doesn't need to be expensive. So, yeah, but I heard it. I completely understand where it comes from. I want to assure everybody, I am not saying I don't hear the differences when I swap out equipment. I hear the difference until I don't know that the swap was made, and then I don't hear it.
It's really hard.
It is.
It's really hard. And I'll give you an example that's outside of AV. And all of us have our own sort of hobbies and stuff like that, that we've, say you're a runner or whatever, right? You buy a new pair of shoes and you start running in them. You're like, oh, these feel, I feel this about these new shoes. And it's, they told me it was going to be like this, and it is like that. And I'm so glad I bought them. And then like, a couple of weeks later, you're like, I don't know, they kind of feel the same as my old shoes. They're not really that much different. Like, I don't really feel like it's that much different. I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes there's technological improvements, than over one thing over another. I mean, it happens. But for the most part, I cannot tell you how many times I have been on my bike. And then I take my bike into the shop, or, I work on my bike, or I clean my bike, or I do something to the bike, and I get back on the bike. I'm like, oh my God, it's so different. And then like 10 miles later, I'm like, yeah, it's the same. It's the
that
same.
Placebo effect is no joke.
It is. Your brain is very good at tricking you into thinking things. But
I mean, in medicine, right? People who are sick, really, really sick, and are part of a controlled test, and they are given the placebo
pill,
and they feel better.
That's right.
That placebo effect is no joke, man. And so, if it works in something like I'm sick and feel like I'm dying, and then I take this pill and I don't feel that way anymore, if that can happen, and it does happen, it can happen with you switched your audio amplifier and you would swear up and down you heard a difference, but then you do it blind and you can't. It can definitely work that way too.
And it's even beyond that. So, I mean, we're talking about you not really trying to hear a difference. You just go think, your brain just kind of says, oh my God, yes, there must be something different because I made a change, that sort of thing. I have seen people who in a blind test couldn't tell the difference between two things, and then were so their ego and brain could not handle the fact that they weren't able to hear that difference. It's
disconcerting when you do it.
So they go back and they do sighted tests, and they're like, oh, I can totally hear it now. I must have been ... excuse.
Something was wrong with the blind test. That's
Something
the only
was wrong with the
conclusion
blind
we can
test
draw.
because I can clearly hear it now. I can clearly hear the difference now. And you not only have this sort of psychological thing where you are paying more close attention, therefore you are noticing more things, therefore you think that you're hearing something that's not there. But even when you can't tell the difference, there's a part of you is like, I just spent $4,000 on an integrated amplifier. There must be a difference.
To understand.
I will find it. I just need to find it.
Yeah.
And you will find it. You will.
Blind tests are a humbling thing, and they are disconcerting and hard to square in your mind for quite a while. I struggle with that. I completely sympathize and understand anybody else who's like, I don't buy it.
That's why I cannot express to you enough that most differences in audio and home theater aren't small. They are not small. The ones that are obvious are the real differences. The ones that literally anybody, like, you don't have to be an audiophile to be anything. It's not like I changed the cable and now there's a little bit more detail in that. No, they are. There was a tweeter. Now there is no longer a tweeter. There is a difference here.
Yeah, you're not spotting 1 decibel differences at 58 hertz.
No.
You're not spotting it. No. You ain't doing it.
Infinite Gary. Since micro lens array was the big upgrade for 2023 OLEDs announced at CES, Gary went looking at a bunch of different coverage on YouTube. He noticed that most of the time the footage showed blown out highlights and clipping of the brightest parts of the image, not exactly impressive look for the new MLA technology, micro lens. You looked at it on YouTube, did you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But if the YouTube videos had adjusted the camera exposure to make the brightest highlights look their best, that would have made the rest of the image look too dim, right? Basically, the cameras being used to shoot those YouTube videos just can't capture the full light output of the newest OLEDs, correct? Have you ever tried to take a picture in a dark room of something bright? Like your camera, your camera can't do anything with it. Like everything gets blown out. I mean, that's why I hate taking pictures of TVs. Like I just did that review of the ultra short throw projector. Every picture I took looks like crap.
Sure.
It looked great in the room, but every picture I took looked like crap because you just can't do it. Which is
on YouTube, these are video cameras that people are going around with, often being shot on their phones or something like that. So yeah, I mean the camera that they're using to shoot the video has many fewer f-stops, a much more narrow range between the darkest thing and the brightest thing it can capture at the same time than the range of light output that these brand new OLEDs are capable of producing. So it's, you've got this window that you're looking through and you're trying to capture the entire image outside of, the frame, the blinders that you've got on either side of your head. You're looking through this pipe and you're saying, well, why can't I see the entire thing, right? So you can move that pipe over so that you're seeing the brightest part of the image only. Then, everything below that is just going to mush into blackness. Yeah. So if they're just trying to give you an overall sense of the beauty of this image, which is what the YouTube videos are doing, then the blacks are going to be crushed and the highlights are going to be blown out into white because they can only get this sort of center portion that their camera can capture. Yeah,
most of them are just walking up there and I mean, you don't have time to be fiddling with.
Yeah, it's auto exposure on their video camera.
It's just what it is.
That's right.
He says, but what about the reverse? For example, he's never enjoyed watching NHL hockey games on his Sony OLED, even though it's been professionally calibrated compared to other TVs in house. He thinks it looks unrealistic with a glow to the white ice surface. And now these MLA OLEDs are supposed to be even brighter. Oh no. So is this a case where the live TV cameras are capturing whatever light level is present at the live event, but then the OLED is expanding that range and making it look brighter and glowier than real life? The reverse of the YouTube situation, where now the TV is showing you more dynamic range and light output than what the camera has captured. What?
So I mean, the short answer is no. There's no problem taking a camera, so your television camera at a live sporting event that has a smaller dynamic range in terms of the range from blackest black to whitest white that the camera can capture, that smaller range, and then displaying it on a television that can show you a bigger range than what the camera could capture. Going from the smaller range of the camera to the bigger range of the TV, that's not a problem. As long as the signal is properly encoded, the TV can just show you whatever signal is coming from, not straight from the camera, but through the broadcast. So it's not that you're trying to, like, if you're taking your camera and trying to point it at something that has a wider light range than the camera can capture, that's a problem because you have to choose your exposure. Either you're going to expose in the middle and clip off the dark and the bright, or you're going to expose for the brightest part and everything below that gets too dark, or you're going to expose for the darkest part and everything above that gets blown out into white. That's the problem when you're trying to use the camera to shoot something with a wider range. But the reverse is not true. If you are capturing whatever is on the camera and then putting that onto a TV that can show you more than that, that's not an issue. So, I don't know. I mean, Gary didn't like the way JVC's projectors looked compared to his own projector. He just seems to be a person who's very sensitive to light output that causes his pupils to constrict in any way, and he just tends to like a much smaller range. I just having talked to Gary all these years, that just seems to be the case for him. He likes things to top out at about 50 nits and just stop there, and that's just what's comfortable for his eyes. So he's just probably not going to be ever a fan of the HDR look. It's going for these 1,000, 1,500 nits now. That's just never going to be pleasing to him. So that's about it.
Gary bought himself a new Fender X turntable, which he put on a milk crate that he turned into a table. I don't know what
something like that.
Yeah, he fully admits he did not need it, and he didn't even get it for its audio quality. He just loved its looks, and he wanted to have one. So on Tom and Rob's AV journeys, what have either of us bought purely for I just want it reasons? Nothing.
I couldn't think.
I
couldn't think of a piece of gear.
I don't have that kind of disposable income, Gary. I hate to break it to you. I don't buy things because they're pretty.
No, I think both of us have probably bought things that, in retrospect, we look back on and probably said, "Oh, I didn't actually have to buy that when I bought it," or I maybe would have bought something else. Like that type of thing has probably happened to us.
And I'm not saying that this is a stupid purchase, but I've made purchases for things I thought I needed or thought I wanted, and I got them, and I never used them. Like I bought myself lights to go behind my projection screen to give kind of that whatever glow thing, whatever, I don't remember, the ambient light thing, but I just couldn't be bothered to hook them up.
Lighting.
The bias lighting, and I could never be bothered to hook them up. So
like I bought a Behringer EQ thing that you could use, to EQ your subs, and then mini DSPs became a thing. So that Behringer EQ really didn't get a whole lot of use, but that wasn't I bought it just because I want. I had a use in mind. I was buying it for a purpose. Can't say I ever really deployed it for any length of time, but it wasn't purely I just want it. So I don't think I have any of those as far as gear goes. I would say one thing I bought purely for I just want it reasons was there was like this Power Rangers DVD collection that like came in a replica Power Rangers helmet thing, and it had like all the episodes of all the seasons on I don't know how many DVDs that went in the back of that helmet. And it's like you can watch all of the Power Rangers shows on Netflix, like they're all there, but I just wanted it. I just wanted the collector's item, and I just wanted to have them all on DVD. I didn't need it. I just wanted it.
I still have that Star Wars pop-up book that and I still have it in plastic, so I've never taken it out of the plastic. So I guess that. All right, who do we have left?
We have on our list Mike and Andrew, and they will be first up next week.
All right. Let's thank our listeners of the week. Let's thank our 139 patrons over at patreon.com for supporting us every month, keeping this podcast going, helping us keep the lights on and the servers powered, because I just had to pay a whole bunch of money for servers.
So, dear. That's what goes on. Well, that's patreon.com.
Years and years of having it for free from Clint is now over. So
right. Oh, is it now?
So thank you very much for that was happening. Yeah.
Yes, patreon.com/AVRant podcast is the place to go to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation if you'd like to. So 139 patrons over there. Thank you all very much for your financial support.
And thank you to Justin for sending, I guess, me a bunch of movie anywhere codes.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. That was nice of you.
And thank you to those who sent us notes of gratitude this week from Manny, Vasanth, Paul, Kevin, Jay, Infinite Gary, Justin, Gurinder, and Andrew.
I will say the names one more time. Manny, Vasanth, Paul, Kevin, Jay, Infinite Gary, Justin, Gurinder, and Andrew. Thank you very much for sending us those notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going. The notes of encouragement are certainly appreciated. So big thank you to you and to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
If you want your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now stay in and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.